Hello everyone and welcome to my channel. Watch my video and subscribe my channel. Sorry Liam, I can't leave him. Liam is outraged when Hope discovers she is pregnant with Carter's baby. In this episode of The Bold and the Beautiful, Liam Spencer's heart shattered into 1,000 jagged pieces when Hope Logan, the woman he had loved through lifetimes of turbulence, second chances, betrayals, and reconciliations, whispered the 5 words that would define the rest of their lives. Sorry, Liam, I can't leave him. Those words echoed like a fatal bell toll inside the Spencer estate's cavernous living room, where memories of their shared F.A. Liam stared at her belly as if it were a stranger, for that was where the truth now lived, a truth wrapped in fragile, nascent life, a truth named Carter Walton, the man who had stood at the altar with Hope not long ago in a whirlwind of support, safety, and a kind of stability that Liam, for all his passionate devotion, had often failed to provide in the chaotic tide of their on-and-off love story. You're pregnant, Liam said, his voice breaking with a mix of awe, fear, and fury, his mind replaying the nights he had believed her heart was still his, the moments after his own medical nightmares and near-death experiences when Hope had sat by his hospital bed, holding his hand and telling him she would always be there no matter what. And now here she was, standing in the identical house where they had once imagined living forever, informing him that forever belonged to another man's kid. Hope's eyes glistened, and her voice wavered as she explained how it happened. How, in the midst of Liam's alleged terminal illness, in the void of her loneliness, when she thought she would lose him to a cruel fate, Carter had been the steady hand, the anchor, the man who whispered promises that felt safe while Liam was lost in surgeries, scams, and Spencer family chaos. She described the night it happened, the sorrow that followed her, and the desperate hope that Liam would recover, only to find herself looking at a positive test weeks later and understanding that her life would never be the same as it was when Liam was the father of all her children. Liam, still reeling from the Grace Buckingham scandal, which had cost him months of his health and nearly his life, staggered under the weight of betrayal, not because Hope had moved on while he was dying, but because she had allowed him to believe in their rebirth, in the warmth of a reunited family, only to pull the rug out from under him when the stakes were higher than ever. You let me dream, Liam whispered, his voice like a blade dragging across stone. You let me believe that all of this fight to live, this fight to come back to you, meant something, Hope. His voice rose as the old Liam, the one who fought for Steffi, for Hope, for the very idea of love as a war to be won, came roaring back. And now, are you telling me you're carrying his baby? Carter Walton is the man who used to be your shoulder to cry on, now the father of the kid we should have had. Hope attempted to talk, to calm him, but her words were like ash in the air. She told him she still loved him, that love was not the issue, but stability, trust, and the opportunity to give this child a future free of the eternal triangle, free of the havoc that Liam's torn heart had always caused. She reminded him of the times he ran to Steffi, the nights he left her bed for the Cliff House, the pain Beth had felt as a result of his indecision, and how Carter had been a constant presence through it all. Not a substitute, not a better guy, but a different one who gave serenity. Liam's rage turned inward, a firestorm of memories, his father Bill, Spencer paying $1 million for bogus surgeries, Finn and Bridget exposing medical fraud, Hope kissing him at the hospital while engaged to Carter, the world cheering for their reunion. And now this cruel twist that made him the outsider in a family he once built. He strode away, his footsteps heavy, vowing to fight for his position in Beth's life, even if Hope's new baby would permanently bind her to Carter. In his mind, plots began to form, not out of malice, but out of desperation. Could he expose Carter, damage their unity, and remind Hope of what they had? Could he persuade her that love was more important than a single mistake? Meanwhile, Hope slumped onto the couch, gripping her stomach and mumbling apologies to the child who would never know a world free of violence, as Carter's voicemail replayed, vowing to come over and shield her from the storm Liam was bound to unleash. Ridge Forrester, observing from the shadows of his own messy engagement fiasco with Taylor, pondered whether he should intervene, as the drama raging through the Spencer-Logan-Forrester dynasty now jeopardized the company, the families, and the connected legacies. Brooke, torn between supporting her daughter and knowing Liam's agony, phoned Bill, who swore to handle Carter in the way only a Spencer could, with threats, power, and the type of money that could change lives. As darkness descended over Los Angeles, Liam drove aimlessly, repeating every memory he had with Hope, every sacrifice, kiss, promise, and betrayal. He remembered Steffi telling him he was too soft, too forgiving, too inclined to believe in fairy tales, and he wondered if she was correct. Hope's words, "Sorry, Liam, I can't leave him," were not just a rejection. They were a declaration of a new chapter in her story, in which he was no longer the hero, but rather a guest star fading into the background. But Liam Spencer was not a man to go lightly. No, he would fight, not just for Hope, but for the truth, for the child who may grow up to see him as a rival to their father, for the opportunity to demonstrate that true love does not sacrifice convenience or safety. And somewhere in the dark, Sheila Carter smiled, anticipating the havoc that would ensue. Chaos she could bend to her will as she whispered to Finn about the rising storm, chaos that, if played perfectly, could topple Carter, Hope, Ridge, and even Bill. The saga had barely begun. Liam drove through the winding streets of Los Angeles that night, his knuckles white on the steering wheel and his mind boiling with betrayal, need, and incredulity. The neon lights that flashed by his windows could have been ghosts, memories of a life he thought he'd recaptured. After months of fighting a bogus brain tumor, being cut open, patched up, lied to by Grace Buckingham, pitted by everyone he loved, and rescued from the edge of death only to discover it was all a ruse, he had assumed that at least one thing had survived intact: Hope's love. But now, with those 5 words slicing into him like a surgeon's scalpel, "Sorry, Liam, I can't leave him," he felt like a guy living someone else's life, witnessing someone else's family being established with his child's mother at the heart, but another man's name on the birth certificate. Hope sat alone in the cabin on the Forrester estate after Carter had left for a late board meeting. The house was still except for the soft ticking of the clock on the mantel, each tick a reminder of the decision she had made, not just to have the baby, but also to align her future with Carter, the man who had held her steady during the storm Liam's near-death experience unleashed. She whispered to her unborn child, telling it that none of this was its fault, that she wished things were different, that love could erase the past. But the past had weight, and it contained Liam's betrayals, his lingering love for Steffi, and the never-ending triangle that had turned her heart into a revolving door of pain. When his son was in anguish, Bill Spencer refused to sit idly by. He came at Liam's house the next morning after hearing from Brooke that something had gone horribly wrong. Bill found Liam staring out over the balcony, eyes bloodshot, his phone on the table, displaying dozens of unsent texts to Hope, pleading, accusing, and begging. "Tell me what happened," Bill said, his tone low and menacing. And Liam told him everything. The confession, the baby, and Hope's demeanor as if Carter Walton, the suave, dependable COO, was a safer bet with her heart. Bill's face clouded, that old cruel glint returning to his eyes. "You mean to tell me that after everything we went through to save your life, after I spent a fortune to buy you time, she was sleeping with him, and now she is pregnant?" Liam banged his fist against the railing. "She claims she still loves you, Dad. But love isn't sufficient. She seeks steadiness. She seeks safety. She wants to remake history with him because I wasn't always present." Bill grabbed his son's shoulder. "Then we remind her who you are. You are Liam Spencer. You battle for what you have. And if Carter believes he can take your family, your child's mother, and construct a life on your ashes, he has another thing coming." Meanwhile, Carter sat in his Forrester Creations office, his hands steepled, torn between shame and a peculiar sense of satisfaction. He hadn't planned for this. He had comforted Hope, yes, but he had always persuaded himself it was harmless, that Liam's health issue left a hole that needed to be filled. But what about the baby? That lasted forever. And as much as he respected Liam, he understood what this meant. Hope was now inextricably linked to him in ways that 1,000 annulments could not undo. Ridge entered without knocking, already knowing of the situation through Brooke. "So it's true," Ridge stated, pacing. "I hope she's pregnant." Carter braced himself for judgment, but Ridge startled him. "You best be ready, Carter. Liam won't let this go. And Bill, he'll destroy this company before his son loses another Logan." Across town, Sheila Carter, always the opportunist, drank her coffee at Il Giardino as Deacon slid into the booth. "Have you heard?" she asked, a mischievous smirk on her lips. "Liam is heartbroken. Hope is pregnant with Carter's baby. The Logans are devastated, the Spencers are enraged, and the Forresters are scrambling to contain the controversy. This is the kind of storm that changes everything," Deacon told her, but Sheila never listened. She once saw Liam as a potential ally, even envisaged herself being part of a redemption tale that restored that shattered family. But now there was leverage, instability, and a chance to play savior or devil depending on which way the wind blew. Days passed, and the news spread, first to Steffi, who sat on her Cliff House sofa with Finn, divided between pity for Liam and a grim, silent delight that her rival's perfect little dream had fallen apart. "He'll always come back to you, you know that," Finn joked. Steffi shook her head. "This is not about me. It's about Hope making a decision that she believes is safe." "What about Carter?" "He is a good dude." "Liam, he's unpredictable." But her words deceived her. There was a flare of ancient longing, the echo of evenings when Liam was hers alone. A week later, Liam met Hope once more, this time as a father needing to know where he stood, rather than a broken man crying for answers. "You can construct your life with him," Liam stated calmly, "but Beth is still ours. And what about this baby? I may not be the father, but don't believe for a second that I won't be present in its life. I will not allow Carter to raise both my daughter and his as if I never existed." Hope's tears poured freely now. "Liam, please, don't start this conflict. I didn't do this to hurt you. I selected this because I can't live in the triangle anymore. I need peace." Liam's gaze darkened. "Peace? Do you desire peace? Then do not ask me to bless this, because peace is not what you will find, Hope. War is." Custody negotiations, press leaks regarding Hope's pregnancy, Spencer publications threatening to run exposés on Forrester hypocrisy, Ridge pleading with Brooke to intervene before the family imploded, and Carter caught in the midst of a multi-generational rivalry. Brooke, caught between her duty to her daughter and her history with Bill, found herself visiting Katie, seeking advice and unintentionally reigniting old flames between Bill and Katie as they united in their quest to safeguard Liam. By the end of the month, the pregnancy had evolved into a business weapon, scandal, and headline. Liam, now more controlled but more deadly than ever, began planning something even Bill didn't expect. A quiet, measured attempt to win Hope back not through rage, but by presence, dedication, and the slow, inescapable reminder of the family they had created. Every school drop-off with Beth, every family dinner, and every time he turned up when Carter couldn't, it was all part of a bigger plan. As autumn descended over Los Angeles, Hope found herself caught between two men once more, not in the reckless, passionate way of the past, but in the slow-burning, soul-tearing way of the present, the guy who held her heart in memory, and the man who held her future in his hands. Liam Spencer was no longer the dazed, heartbroken man who had staggered out of Hope's living room, his world crumbling beneath him. He was now a strategist cloaked in grief, a man who had lived through fake diagnoses, surgeries that never happened, a coma that nearly stole his life, and $1 million scam that left him humiliated in front of the world. And he had risen from that humiliation with a fire that was no longer purely emotional, but surgical in its intent. Bill Spencer recognized that fire as well, and he nourished it with the care of a parent who had understood that love and conflict were sometimes synonymous. "Do you want your family back?" Bill inquired one late evening at Spencer Publications, his office bathed in the golden and dark glare of the Los Angeles cityscape. Then stop begging. Stop crying for her. Show her that Carter Walton is not the man she believes he is. Show her what she's giving up. Liam clenched his jaw, glancing at the headline mock-ups his father had set on the table. Whispers about Carter's past, concerns about his allegiance, speculations about how swiftly he had stepped into the gap Liam's illness had created. "I don't want to destroy him," Liam murmured, his words lacking conviction. "Don't kid yourself," Bill stated coldly. "It is war. If you want Hope back, you don't just win her heart. You also degrade your opponent until she recognizes him for what he is, a placeholder." Carter and Hope sat in the Forrester design office at the same moment, both exhausted by the whirlwind of rumor that was now swirling in every tabloid and gossip blog from Beverly Hills to Paris. "I didn't want this to turn into a circus," Hope said softly, placing her hand protectively on her little but noticeable bump. "I just wanted a family, peace, a chance to raise this baby without chaos." Carter kissed her hand. "We'll get through it. Liam is sad, but he will eventually learn to understand our decision." However, Carter knew Liam would never respect their decision since Liam was a man who fought ghosts, triangles, and legacies. He was a man who had lost once and would never give up attempting to recoup that loss. Hope's mother, Brooke Logan, was ripped in two. On the one hand, she wanted to safeguard her daughter's newfound sense of security. On the other, she had seen the raw sorrow in Liam's eyes, the same type she had seen in Ridge's when destiny had been ripped from him. "You still love him," Brooke said Hope one night at the cabin, as Carter went upstairs to take a call. "I see it. It's in your eyes when you utter his name." Hope sobbed silently. "Love is not the question, Mom. It's about trust. Carter has never abandoned me for someone else. He has never made me feel second best. I can't continue to raise children in the shadow of Steffi and Liam's history. I can't keep wondering when he'll return to her." Brooke bit her lip, torn between parental impulses and Logan's tradition of battling for love, even if it was messy, impossible, or scandalous. Steffi Forrester, meantime, found herself dragged unwillingly into the tempest when Liam appeared at the Cliff home more regularly, ostensibly to drop off Beth for playdates with Kelly, but lingering, talking, and contemplating. "You're using me," Steffi eventually confessed one afternoon as they watched the girls construct castles in the sand. "You are trying to remind Hope of what she has lost by being here. And you know what? It works. Because every time you come here, every time you show her you're still a father, a partner, she'll start to doubt Carter a little more." Liam didn't deny it. "I won't injure her, Steffi. I'm just going to be present. And if Carter can't handle that, then he's not the right man for her after all." Sheila Carter observed all of this from a distance, like a vulture circling a battlefield. She had been working her way back into Finn's life, and thus Steffi's by saving her from Luna's lethal attack months ago, and now she saw another crack emerging, one that may break the Logan Spencer-Forrester alliance once more. "Chaos creates openings," she said Deacon, her voice low and her eyes bright with ideas. "Liam is hurting. Bill is angry. Hope is vulnerable. Carter is overconfident. There's room for a little persuasion," Deacon told her again. However, Sheila's concept of staying out was like a wolf's definition of peace. The next blow came not from Bill or Liam, but from the press. An article published by a rival outlet accused Carter of using his position at Forrester Creations to influence Hope during her darkest days, implying impropriety, manipulation, and even timing issues that suggested the baby was not his at all. It was cruel, unfair, but effective, board members murmured. Ridge wanted answers, and Hope, who had fought her entire life to protect her line's name, felt the first cracks of public disgrace press against her ribs. "This is your father," she charged Liam during a heated exchange in the Forrester courtyard. "I know this is his style, nasty headlines and half-truths. You're allowing him to destroy the father of my child only to get me back." Liam didn't move. I am not making the headlines, Hope. The truth has a way of spreading on its own. Do you think Carter is perfect? Perhaps he is. Or perhaps he saw a chance while I was in a hospital bed and took it. Bill was more straightforward, summoning Carter to Spencer Publications for a conversation and laying everything out. You're getting in the way of my son's family. You can play the saint all you want, but I see an opportunist behind the suit. Back off, or I'll use every resource I have to make sure you're too busy fighting lawsuits to even attend Lama's class. Carter left enraged, but terrified, because Bill Spencer didn't make idle threats, and behind him stood a media empire and a track record of winning ugly. As winter arrived, the line stiffened. Hope clung to Carter out of rebellion as well as affection, wanting to show the world she was not a woman easily intimidated. Liam, meantime, increased his presence by attending every doctor's appointment he could, not as a partner, but as Beth's father, charming the nurses and asking soft questions about Hope's health, creating a gravitational pull that Carter, who was frequently embroiled in corporate fights, struggled to match. And slowly, painfully, Hope began to recall the way Liam smiled with Beth, how he knew her desires before she expressed them, and how his hand automatically reached for hers when no one was looking. By New Year's Eve, the cabin was lighted with gentle golden lights. Carter was away on business, Beth was sleeping upstairs, and Liam stood at the door with a simple gift, a framed photo of the four of them from a simpler Christmas. "I'm not here to fight," he replied gently. "I'm here to remind you of what we were, what we could still be." Hope glanced at the photo, tears welling in her eyes, her palm resting on the swell of her belly where Carter's kid developed, and she faltered for the first time since saying those fatal words.